starting out with the intro, you've been at some huge companies, and those are all companies that you've held very high-level positions. But so I think the crowd would be interested in knowing, before those high-level positions, how did you first break into the publishing industry? Where was sort of your start? Can you tell us a little bit about the early side of your career?
Well, I always knew I was going to be in media. I was writing from an early age, from grammar school. I always knew it was going to be, I loved entertainment and journalism. Can everyone hear? Can you hear? Is this better? And so I never imagined an HR career. So I was absolutely kidnapped and like the Stockholm Syndrome, they said, you will be in HR. And I ended up being in HR. But I started my own local publication, and I quit a very thriving, actually, education career. I was teaching to take an unpaid job as a way to break into broadcasting because I wanted it that badly. And then I just kind of worked my way through there.
Awesome. So now that you're dealing with so many different employees on different levels, and I'm sure seeing lots of entry-level folks come in, it sounds like just from that you did a few things to go out of your way to make sure you made it in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about qualities of people who have come into time or have tried to come into time where you've been really impressed with their ambition and the strategies they've taken to make sure they get that job they want?
Yeah, there are 5 things I look for, that I've always looked for, that I've always admired in candidates, because the truth is, when you're in human resources and you interview people, if you interview 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people a day, every day, 50 people a week, hundreds of people, it's like they all start to sound the same. And then there's that one person that just kind of pops. And they pop because of a few different things. One is they know how to play the game. Like I call it like the Trojan horse theory. Like they know how to get themselves invited in. And that's a function of really making the employer feel like this is a perfect match. Like they're not just looking for a job, but they're looking for you. It's kind of like dating. It's like, imagine being on a date and you say, yeah, I'm just dating, and meeting you, it's a great way to kill some time. And maybe we'll see each other again or not, but like it's saying, no, I want you. Like here's the reason why I want timing. And they've done their homework, and it feels authentic, and it doesn't feel desperate, like they're just like, please hire me, I need a job, but like, no, you have to hire me because I was meant to work for you. That's like one of the first things that makes somebody pop out. So I mean that's critical for standing out from the crowd of everybody else. If you just go on a bunch of interviews and just interview for a job, then you will be just like everybody else.
So on that note, enthusiasm, I feel like sometimes people are almost embarrassed by it. They don't want to seem over-enthusiastic. Can you maybe think of any specific cases of someone who kind of no shame was just did that, like popped because they made it so clear, anything interesting they did, or within the application process?
Well, when you've done this for 25 years, you've seen a lot. And so I've seen every successful tactic, I've seen every crash and burn tactic, I mean I've seen everything.
Can you give us one of each?
Yes, so a crash and burn tactic was dressing completely inappropriately and asking me out. That was a completely inappropriate. Another one was crying because they want the job so badly and want to work here. So this was on a college campus. Someone started crying. They were so excited and they were so nervous, and if they didn't get this job, and they literally started crying.
Hold your tears, guys.
Yeah, I would hold your tears. For specific things that really, I mean, I've seen lots of creative things. I've seen people send in mock magazines or mock newspaper articles, or when I worked in book publishing, I've had people actually write a little short story about themselves and why they would be a perfect hire. So those are, the kinds, particularly within a media company. We're media, we're entertainment, and so you want someone that demonstrates that they understand the industry and they understand, and whether it's media, whatever industry you want to get into, it's about packaging yourself. It's about branding yourself and knowing who you are. So it's those people who really have a strong sense of self and a sense of marketing and a sense of branding and know how to create a package that is incredibly attractive to that employer. And there's authenticity around it, right? It doesn't seem like a complete charade. You back it up with things you've done, experiences you've had, and research you've done on the company that demonstrates this is a real serious candidate, not someone who just found some shtick or gimmick out of a book.
Great. And for folks who are currently in a position, let's talk a little bit about making the most of roles that you do have. So, and how many of you out there have ever had a job that you didn't really like or enjoy? Right, everyone. So, I mean, can we talk? And I think
people on my own staff have raised their hands that they don't like their jobs. My daughter raised her hand. Just like my daughter's in the audience. Brandon, can you stand up?
Say hi.
Say hi.
Everybody, tweet it. So for people who are in jobs that are not the ideal job, which most of you will not land your very first job as the dream job, what are your tips for once people are in, they've made that good impression, how do they continue to be someone who stands out to move up?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are 4 things that I look for, and that I think most employers look for. Once you get in, you should go on a charm offensive. You should make everyone in the company want to be with you, want to invite you out for a drink after work, want to invite you to lunch, want to invite you into meetings. A charm offensive. I can't tell you how critical that is to build a constituency around the company and make people like you. And of course, it's all about being authentic. But charm offensive, I tell when I hire people, and I hire people at particular, senior levels, that's one of the first things I tell them. When you come in here, make people say, wow, what a great hire, what a great guy or great girl to work with. Like that just seems like a real, so that's one critical working on a charm offensive. 2, particularly at the early stages, be humble. I know you are incredibly smart, but you're not the smartest person in the room. You're never the smartest person in the room. And even if you find things that seem stupid, you never know what were the circumstances or the people involved that led to a certain decision being made. So you're going to change the world. You're the future. That's great, but you're not the smartest person in the room, and you still have a hell of a lot to learn. So demonstrate that, no attitude. Like, want to know the quickest way to get fired out of my department is to have an attitude. So if you cop an attitude, you're gone. And most companies feel that way. And if you can't help it, okay, then just go work somewhere else. So I'm like, that's a deal breaker for me. And coming in and demonstrating how smart you are and how great you are at building relationships, and what a great student you are, recognizing that you're only 20, 25, 30, wherever you are in your career, you're still a puppy. Like, there is still so much more life to learn and lead and experience. And even now, I've been doing HR for 25 years, and I had a whole career before that. And even now, it's like, wow, that's a new one. I hadn't seen that before. So that would be the second thing after sort of getting in. The other thing is then crush it. I mean, absolutely crush it. Be coming early, stay late, and deliver. There are no excuses. There's no, it's like that Yoda thing from Star Wars. There's no try, only do, or something like that. Like, there's you don't have a successful career by trying really hard. And working really hard doesn't equate to value. Activity isn't value. So you have to figure out how to be productive, how to add value, and just crush everything you do, even if it's a menial task. Who's going to give you more if you don't crush the menial task? So I mean, literally crush it. And then be fearless about owning who you are. If you just, there's one thing about sort of getting in and getting along and trying to, you know, blend in and make friends, but there's also, how do you distinguish yourself, right? What is your spike? What are you really great at? What are you known for? What will people around the company say, wow, you should go to that person to talk about this or ask about that? What's your personal style? Don't be afraid to have one, and when you have it, own it, work it, and deliver. So that's, if you want the best odds of having long-term career success, those are the ingredients. I mean, you can Google search all these things and get 6 billion different answers and but just listen to me, you don't have to listen to any of that. And trust me, you do this, you will have a phenomenal foundation for building long-term success. The thing I can't help you with is whether or not you're really smart and talented, because you've got to be smart and talented. If you're smart and talented and you do all these other things, I have no doubt, and you should have no doubt, that you will be successful, because not enough people do it.
That's great. So, and you mentioned you work with a lot of senior hiring senior executives and leaders. So, you know, what advice can you give for people who, you know, are aspiring to be a leader? You know, and are there any sort of quirky or qualities of leaders that you find to be successful that are not so obvious, like public speaking, that have helped you and you've seen have helped other senior leaders within your company who you've worked for?
Yeah, I think leaders come in all shapes and sizes and varieties, and, you know, run the spectrum. I think be the boss you want. Think about what inspires you, and be that boss. Learn from the bad ones. Don't just jump from the bad ones. Learn. There's something to learn from everyone, even if it's for context, what a bad boss is. And, you know, there's no real magic. I love personal style. There are bosses who are large and in charge, and there are bosses who are really quirky and creative and eccentric, and there are bosses that are just very calm and humble and quiet, and they're all great if they're smart, if they give you an opportunity to learn and to grow and to stretch, if they respect you and respect what you do and treat you respectfully and professionally, and they stimulate you. I mean, so the personality traits don't make the boss. It's what kind of environment do they create, and how do they make you feel in the work that you're doing? Do you want to get up every day and go work for that person and go work in that environment? Are they challenging you? Are you learning from them? Are you having an opportunity to grow your career? That's what makes a great boss. All couched in, does the person have integrity, and do they treat you respectfully?
So you handle a lot of benefits and compensation and all that kind of stuff. And I know this is a little more boring, but I did want to bring up benefits, right? Because I think so many people are just so excited to get a job, even if it is one they love, that sort of thing, it just passes them by like lightning. I mean, I started out in publishing, and I remember the meeting where they were going over the 401ks and the healthcare and all that kind of thing. And I was just wondering if you could give some tips on how to make sure that people take advantage of those benefits, like 401ks without a vesting period, or anything from that to like free movie tickets. I don't know, just things that you've heard or seen that people miss out on. Yeah,
well, first of all, you can't negotiate benefits. So you can tell a rookie when they come in and say, well, can I negotiate a higher 401k, or particularly junior level in your career, when you try to negotiate extra vacation, I want to rescind the job offer, because I feel like you can't even take the amount of vacation we're giving you, because there's that much work to do. So don't try to negotiate benefits, don't try to negotiate vacation, unless you're at a super senior level. Absolutely dive into every single perk that the company offers. So if it's free movie tickets, if it's some sort of socials, if it's any kind of event where other employees are gathering, absolutely jump in those kinds of perks. And the only benefit that I can really think of that is the most underappreciated and underutilized is the 401k. Because if you are not participating in your company's 401k, if your company offers a company match and you're not participating, because you think you can't afford to part with that 6% of your pay or something like that, trust me, you can. Like, it's if you don't go to Starbucks twice a week, you fund the 401k. So, you know, absolutely get the company match, because if you don't, you are literally throwing money away. Most companies match 50% of what you put in up to a certain amount. So that's getting a 50% return. Warren Buffett doesn't get 50% return. Like, no one in the history gets 50. You are throwing money away. So as soon as you get a job, find out how much the company will match, find out how much you have to put in to get that full match, and then put it into, and I'm not supposed to do this, put it into an aggressive growth fund. If you've got like 30-year horizon, put it into an aggressive growth fund for now, at least anyway, and then just forget it. And every time you can sign up and add more to your 401k, do it. It's probably the best investment out there when there's a company match.
We do have a personal finance workshop later on too, if you want to dive into that deeper. So for these people that you've seen stand out in your career, especially at the younger level, mentorship is obviously huge when you're younger. What advice do you have for people who are looking for mentorship, formally or informally, and you know, what makes you want to take time out of your day to mentor someone?
You have to demonstrate, you know, you can't be a stalker, you can't make it like, you will mentor me. Like, I will show up at your doorstep. So that's just a little cue for the people who work for me. The easiest way to get a mentor is to impress people by how committed you are, how hardworking you are, how much of a pleasure you are to work with, how curious you are, how many questions you ask, smart questions. Then it is easy to get a mentor. People, and the really good executives they might even offer to suggest that you get a mentor and that they mentor you. But it doesn't have to be this formal, gee, how do I work the nerve up to ask you if you will mentor me? It can be very simply just continuing to pick somebody's brain. And then after a period of time, you just have that relationship where you know that you can always go to that person, and they'll always take your call, and always, occasionally invite them out for a cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be dinner, drinks, something, you know, with a real commitment. A cup of coffee for 20 minutes. Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Just like to pick your brain. Do it casually, do it informally, and make it worth their while. Ask smart questions. Don't just bring problems. I'm unhappy, what do I do? I don't like my job, what do I do? It's like, I don't know, you tell me. So if you make it worth their while, you never have to ask someone, will you be my mentor? They just will be a coach. And have as many as it makes sense to have. And then it becomes safe and easy that way. It's not like, well, I take on this formal role of mentoring you, and then, gee, you know, when does that end, and do we break up at the end of it? It's like this, you know, you just want to build your network, just build lots of people who want to talk to you and want to help you, and be proactive. Great.
Well, so talking about networking and networking, I mean, you've been at like all the big names in media and publishing. I mean, I'm sure
except one, and I was actually, well, except one. Okay. Meredith.
Oh, okay.
So in magazine publishing, so at one point, a year and a half ago, Meredith, Time Warner was almost going to sell timing to Meredith. Now, I've been in every major magazine company in New York, except for Meredith. Not that I want to work there, but I was thinking, if they had sold us to Meredith, which would have been the great irony, since we're the largest in the world and they're the smallest, but if they had sold us to Meredith, then I would have been able to put on my resume that I worked at Hearst, Kanye Nast, Time Inc., and Meredith. Now, Meredith would have only lasted for a day because I would have been fired the very next day. But it would have been worth it to put it on my resume. We got a great severance package, and I would have been able to say I worked at the Big Four.
So can you share a little bit how you've, at an early stage, grown your network, maintained your network, and maybe some examples of how some people have, helped you in terms of a networking sense?
Yeah, well, so when when I worked in television, writing, producing, editing, and I did some on-air work, I thought I wanted to do this full time. Being on air. And this is a good story for sort of being self-aware and understanding what your strengths are and knowing. So I was thinking about a career in broadcasting, and I knew for me, the only measure of success would be being like a top anchor in New York City. That's like saying you're going into politics, and the only way you'll ever be happy with a career in politics is if you become president of the United States. So I figured, because the road is you start in really small markets, and every 6 months you have to move around the country, and I am like the quintessential New Yorker, so I would have complete disdain in every location that I'd be working and reporting on. And so I just was honest about what it would take, and I said, I'm probably not going to do that. So I came back to New York, and my network within media is what got me all these different interviews at all the different media companies. And because I had done so many different things, and I did public speaking, and writing, and teaching, and producing, and editing, it was the Newhouse family and organization. They owned Random House and Condé Nast at the time, and newspapers, that said, we don't quite know where you fit, but we like you in the company, so why don't we park you in human resources? It was called personnel at the time. And I'm like, I have no idea what this is or what is it. And they said, no, it's we'll park you there. You will learn about the company, people will get to know you, and then we'll figure out where, how you go, which is a great thing. That's kind of you get your foot in the door. Getting in is the big thing. Once you're in, then you can navigate and figure out how to navigate the whole place. So that's how I got started. But it was through my network that got me all of those interviews, that got someone to say, we think that's a talented person. I would never have gotten that job if I was applying for jobs. I would have never gotten hired by the Newhouses. I never would have gotten hired at Random House in personnel by trying to answer an ad. It was because of networking that people said, vouching for me, knowing my background, knowing what I was good at, opened doors. But then once you're there, it's kind of you really then demonstrating it, which led to them saying, hire him, park him there, let's see what happens. And that was 25 years ago, and I never left human resources.
Wow, that's amazing. So talking about all the different things you've done in your past, and now you have this full...
And by the way, the person my first boss in human resources, said, we have to get you out of human resources as soon as possible and into the business because you are so not the human resources type. I've had a pretty good human resources career after that. And we're still friends today, and she says, you are the unlikeliest HR executive in the entire profession. That may be true.
So you did a lot in your previous HR career, and now you have this big job, which I'm sure is very time-consuming, your family, but you also do continue to write for the New York Post. It's sort of on the side weekly, which I think is impressive, consistent for a long time now. So again, we really encourage the side hustle as doing something outside of work to build your skills and grow your network. So can you talk a little bit about how you manage that on top of the full-time job and family and life?
Yeah, so when I was at News Corporation for 15 years, and I love News Corporation. That's where they have the Journal and Dow Jones and HarperCollins and Fox and 20th Century Fox. It was like a playground. If you're interested in journalism and entertainment and media, it was a playground. So and because I was always one who was just sort of conscious of my brand and just getting out there, when the New York Post was starting an at-work section, a supplement in their Monday paper, they wanted to have a career advice column. So they asked me for my advice on, they asked me for my advice on what the career section should look like. And I said, you should have a career advice column, but a fun one. And they said, that's a great idea. So they went out and they got a Dear Abby type career advice columnist for the New York Post who would give advice like, when you're at, an executive function, use the fork that's the smallest for, salary. So that you look like you have etiquette and that people will hire you into an executive position. I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. So apparently she wasn't getting any traction, and no one was like, it was true, that's how she was writing. Like, and so they called me, and they said, it's not working out so well. I said, of course it's not working out so well, it's stupid. I said, this is what it should be like, and I sent them. I said, like, people ask these kinds of questions, and you should answer them that way. And so I just sent them like a couple of samples of what the column should be, not pitching myself. And they said, you're right, this is great, do you want to write it? And I went, okay. And that was 8 years ago, and you know, I write it in my spare time, and I never have a ghostwriter, ever. So I have to say, in 8 years, I've probably had 4 columns ghostwritten, because I really feel like it needs to be me. But read the paper on Monday. Monday's column was only edited by me. It wasn't written by me. It was written by Katie Christensen and Sam Simons. Can you stand up? So.
You can meet them at the Opportunity Mission.
And that's because this week I was absolutely crushed. And I completely blew my deadline. And I came out of a meeting, and I was in meetings yesterday, and so I worked until practically midnight last night, and I ran out of one meeting, and I ran into Katie's office and said, write my column, you have 30 minutes. Now, she, you know, working with me for a bunch of years, you know how the column goes. Now I write it, and then wrote it, sent it to me, I made some tweaks, sent it on, and so yeah, so you know, you work it in. It's not, you know, there's always time. It's about managing your time well, but there's always time.